Hey neighbor, welcome back to Beyond ARTV. My name is John, and it's time for another episode of Hate It or Love It. This is the series where I scour the internet looking for various reasons as to why an artist is either loved or hated, and today we're zeroing in on the punk rock band Green Day, one of the most successful bands of all time, and 5 reasons why people seem to hate them. Fair warning, Green Day are my favorite band, but I want to try and objectively look at these reasons to see if they do have their merits or if they're totally unfounded. And with Green Day being so immensely popular, obviously there are way more people that love them than hate them, but I do think it's interesting to look at the critical angles too. Green Day were founded in the late 1980s, and they were originally known as Sweet Children, and they played a lot of local venues in California, and one of the most popular, of course, being Gilman Street. I think the fake punk term is thrown around because they got a contract with a major label, Warner Records, they left their small label Lookout, and people kind of felt like they left the scene high and dry, and at the time in the 90s, that was a very volatile decision to say the least. It wasn't something that Green Day took lightly, and I don't feel that they ever turned their back on their fans, but again, there was a major divide between indie and mainstream at that point. Being punk rock was being on a small label. It was sweating it out in the van and playing small shows, not being on MTV and playing these massive sold-out arenas and headlining concerts like Woodstock in '94. It was definitely a tough time for some fans to come to terms with the size and magnitude that Green Day had grown to, but they were definitely not straying away from their punk roots, as an album like Insomniac, which came just after their Diamond Cellar Dookie, was even heavier and more emphasized on punk, as was Nimrod, at least to a degree. Green Day may have changed, but I definitely don't think it's fair to say that they totally turned their back on punk rock, because I think they did a lot for the community. They've signal boosted consistently to smaller acts, and they've supported them by bringing them out on tours, to even something as simple as Billie Joe Armstrong or another member wearing the band shirt on stage at their concert. Everyone loves to talk politics, right? Never divisive, just always on the same page about everything. We're hand in hand, humanity is saved. No, that's not the case. It never has been, never will be, although there were times where it felt like we were a bit more unified, maybe not even in our lifetimes, but at certain points it felt like people kind of got along. But politics can be divisive, and Green Day have definitely taken firm stances against people that they feel are authoritarian figures, along with everything else they've been sliding into their music since really the late 90s, early 2000s. Warning was a turning point in Green Day's discography, and I feel like that's where people started to kind of hop off of the bandwagon, no longer hitching a ride, if you will. Tracks like Minority made it pretty clear how they felt about certain issues, and then they rolled out a little album in 2004 that totally reinvigorated their career called American Idiot, and you can probably surmise that that's definitely a politics album. They did 2 concept album rock operas back to back, and it wasn't totally politics central, but there were digs thrown in throughout. We got American Idiot and 21st Century Breakdown, and even some of the tracks on Revolution Radio in 2016 definitely didn't stray too far from that route. And that can definitely lead to people feeling divided. And it was kind of hilarious to see the reaction to Revolution Radio on some of the band's social outlets, with people saying, "Oh my god, if you could just keep the politics out of it, please? Like, where were you for Warning and American Idiot? Did you just totally miss that?" A punk band taking some sort of political stance is like bread to butter. It's always going to happen. So to see people now acting mad, it's just like you didn't realize, you weren't smart enough to kind of put the connecting dots together in the past, and now that it's being spelled out for you on social media, now you're like, oh yeah, that's a part of the equation that I just can't stand, so I'll have to GTFO. Four chords, power chords, playing the same song over and over and over again. That is one of the most consistent criticisms of Green Day that I see, and I do understand that. It's not like they're technically wrong like 95% of the time, but to me and millions of other fans, I think it's about what you're able to do with those chords, the progression, the intensity, what you're doing with the sound around it, with the other musicians, the lyrics to actually carve out their special place. If you're a musician yourself and you like to consistently push towards deeper sounds, then I could see why a band like Green Day are frustrating, at least at surface level, because they're not really breaking out these complex song structures, at least not the majority of the time, playing in odd time signatures, keeping a weird offbeat drum pattern or something. They're doing things pretty standard, but I think it's kind of the volume and intensity and even the lyrical grit that they bring to the table that does put them on a different playing field. To hit home again what I was saying on the last point, I think Warning was a tipping point in their discography where they really started to experiment. There were tracks on Nimrod, like Last Ride In, that definitely played with a very different style that was abnormal for Green Day, but by the time we got to American Idiot, they're doing full-blown 9-minute rock opera ballads that are all over the place, 5 songs within one. So again, containing them into this box of saying they only play the same songs, I'll give it to you. Like the trilogy Uno Dos Tre, they definitely kept the same formula. Verse, chorus, then you got a guitar solo back into the chorus one final time. But outside of certain records, I feel it's unfair to just pigeonhole them like that. Age is but a number, but as the members of Green Day now enter their 50s, I think a lot of fans are starting to reflect back on their career and how they've evolved and shifted over the decades, and it seems like there's a loud minority out there that seem to feel that they've been going downhill for years at this point, if not decades, dating back to the 1990s. There's some legions of fans that kind of pledge allegiance to the idea that they haven't made a good album since Dookie or Insomniac, and that Nimrod, Warning, American Idiot especially, are just these mainstream pariahs that just want to do one thing and one thing only, conquer the charts. I never really felt like that was Green Day's intention, but I can see why a band as big as Green Day definitely kind of developed that reputation. The only wrench in the gears there for that argument is that you're putting personal preference so high above the actual quality, and you're not thinking in terms of, oh, does this sound good in terms of a general song? Does this sound like it's expanding their ideas and their reach while staying true to their roots? You're thinking in terms of, does this sound like Slappy Hours? Does this sound like Kerplunk? Does this sound like Insomniac? No, it doesn't, so I'm throwing it out the window. If that's all you're looking for, then those albums are always going to be available. You can listen to them till your heart is overflowing with joy and also rage because Green Day changed. But for the other fans out there, much like any other band, we understand that changes are going to happen, and while we might not always love them, father of all motherfuckers, we're still going to hope for the best in the future. Yes, that was a pun. Yes, you're gonna forgive me, because Green Day being overexposed is the same lazy, tired argument that you could levy against any successful artist that's somewhat entered the mainstream. I would say that Green Day didn't just touch it. They definitely blew up that space. It's like the Green Day Dookie album cover, just exploding and erupting. It's Green Day fuel everywhere. With a band like Green Day having as many hits under their belt as they've had, all the way back to When I Come Around, Basket Case, to American Idiot, Wake Me Up When September Ends, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, to even Bang Bang, Good Riddance, Time of Your Life. I can see why some people, especially if you work in retail, you can get tired of those songs. They are used in many mainstream facets, but at the end of the day, it's all about controlling your exposure, and if you're a fan of the band, you're probably gonna like that, and if you don't like them, and maybe you were never inclined to loving them, then it can push you further away, but it's not really anybody's fault, other than, I guess, the people who market their music. It always comes with the territory. If you're a famous band, then you're always going to have people that hate you, so I don't think this point is really worth lingering on, but yeah, it's one that definitely frequently comes up. How do you guys feel about Green Day? Sound off in the comments section. Please leave a like on this video. Me, I'm cautiously optimistic for their future. I'm hoping that they continue to find a way to make solid stuff. Hopefully that pops up sooner rather than later, but if you want to see more of my Green Day content, then tap here for another recent episode of this show, and I'll be back soon on Beyond ARTV.